This is about the third time that I've talked with you via the telephone.
Oh.
One of these days we'll have to arrange some sort of meeting, but it's always good to talk to you nonetheless.
Oh, okay, good.
Congratulations for some superb music at the Roxy.
Oh, which night?
I went Friday and Saturday.
First or second?
The first show Friday and the second show Saturday.
Oh, good. Personally, I much prefer the second show Saturday. I don't know if you did or not.
I like the show Friday, I think, because of the fact that it was exciting for me. I think for most people there, the first time seeing you do something as a solo performer. And I think a lot of people probably felt that way. I really enjoyed myself. I think probably Saturday was a smoother sort of situation, but it was...
I think we relaxed a little more in the second show.
Yeah, it was very, very exciting. How do you feel about all this?
Well, I've been enjoying it a lot. I had a lot of doubts as to how it was going to work out, and particularly, dropping all of the visuals and not doing Genesis stuff really, and so... the fact that people still like it at the end is very, very nice for me.
The show's gotten pretty good reviews around the country.
It seems to be getting pretty good reactions. So, and I've been looking at it like a sort of first tour, so for that I'm very, very happy.
Do you kind of view your current audience as maybe holdovers from Genesis, or do you think that you've engendered a whole new audience for yourself?
Well, I've tried to separate it as much as possible. I mean, obviously, the initial pull, particularly in the early dates, when people weren't that familiar with the album, was based on Genesis days. But it has been changing. In places where I've had good airplay, I think there has been a new audience. So
it's a combination of both, probably.
Yeah.
Do you think that audience accessibility is a strong factor in the kind of music you're doing now?
Well, not so much accessibility, but it's very important for me to be able to feel that there's an active relationship between what's going on stage and what's going on in the audience, so that the people in the seats know that what they put out affects what happens on the stage.
You seem to have rendered a new approach on this solo album. Are you taking a new approach to the written lyric as opposed to some of the things you were doing with Genesis?
I was trying to make it slightly more personal and a bit simpler, I think. A bit more down to earth, perhaps, but I wanted to focus on the songwriting as such, I suppose, both music and words. But a little more low profile. I mean, that's why I didn't put any lyrics in.
I was talking to a friend of yours, a couple, 3-4 weeks ago, Armando Gallo, who was working on a book, and he brought up a tape of the album before it was released, and there was a tape of you talking about some of the tunes and some of the things that you wanted to accomplish. Do you think that your work as a solo artist is a bit more demanding than within the structure of a group?
I don't know. I mean, there used to be certain situations that took as much out of me, I think, in Genesis, but in some ways it's easier this way for me because I'm not fighting people all the time. I mean, not to say that there was a lot of fighting going on in Genesis, but, different people had different tastes, and sometimes, I think it was a little weaker for the fact that there wasn't a unified direction.
I was reading a recent interview with you in Melody Maker, and you indicated that Genesis was a very stifling thing for you toward the end, and your creativity seemed to be snub-nosed quite a bit. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I think it was more the process itself was a bit stale, rather than The Lamb Lies Down was the last thing I did with the band, and that and Supper's Ready are the things that I like the best. So the end result I'm not dissatisfied with, but as people, we were working writing songs together with Mike and Tony anyway for 10 years, and that's a long time.
Yes, it is.
So, and we began to fall into roles, I think, certain habits, so that it was a bit less testing than before. And I mean, I think the direction that I would have wanted to take the band would have been more in the direction of, say, Lamb Lies Down, as against slightly, well, I mean, I think that the difference would show itself between Lamb Lies Down and Trick of a Tail and Wind and Wuthering.
Yes, what do you think of those new efforts?
Personally, I like Wind and Wuthering better of the two. I think that the first album they were trying maybe to just reproduce the old Genesis as accurately as they could to the original.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they proved that they could do it very well without me, they were able to be more adventurous on Wind and Wuthering, which I find more interesting. And the recording is much better, the production, the playing is much better, and some nice melodies.
How do you think of Phil Collins' new role, and did you think that he was even capable of doing that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked Phil singing. The others in the band were dubious about him singing some of the harder numbers. And, I mean, at one point of Trick of a Tail, there was sort of mumbles to it in my direction again, but I think he's done a very good job of it. And I think as a technician, he's a better singer than I am, and that he has more control over his voice, I think. But the difference from my end is that he's more a musician and an interpreter rather than an originator or writer. And I think of myself as a writer who tries to communicate ideas rather than a musician.
Something that is interesting that a lot of people have been discussing is that since your departure from Genesis, that weaving note of humor that used to be evident in albums seems to be gone now, and Genesis seems to be quite a bit more straightforward than when you were with them, and there was that bit of irony and a bit of sarcasm. Was that due in part to the fact that you were responsible in total for that kind of irony, or maybe your departure sort of...
Yeah, I like to keep certain points and humor and earthy areas just to give a point of reference. Because for me, the fantasy areas work best if there are definite anchors to reality somewhere. And yeah.
Right.
That's more my taste, perhaps. Yeah.
Were you surprised that your first solo album was so very successful?
Yeah, I mean, I've been delighted.
I mean, there isn't one bad track on that album. It is all just excellent. And for a first solo thing, that's really unusual, you know?
Well, it was very useful for me having Bob Ezrin, who was editing, so that I had quite a lot of songs, that didn't get on the album. And he helped me pick the best ones, and like suggested cutting out certain sections where it got a little long-winded, this sort of thing. I mean, for an example, the most extreme case of that was Salisbury Hill,
which is a great track.
Which, despite my wanting to keep things simple and personal, originally was a song which had 7 different sections. And in fact, Bob thought that was much too complex, so I forgot about it. And then during the sessions, I started playing again on those, on the 2 sections that eventually sort of comprised that song, and built it up again with a different feel. And I think it works better for having simplified.
Do you think you'll use Bob again, or will you maybe want to experiment with Brian Eno as a producer, or maybe Rundgren or John Cale or somebody else?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there were odd people I talked to, but I would like to use Bob again. I think for both of us, it was an area that we hadn't really worked in before, and I think we were both pleased with the result. it's one of those things, you know. As long as there's a good sort of growing relationship there,
it's good to continue.
I'll stay with it. Yeah.
What prompted you to do that Marvin Gaye tuning, that Peculiar?
Well, it came to just before. I mean, it was only about a week or so before the first show, and I hadn't finally made up my mind whether to do Genesis material or not. And I thought, as an alternative, I could just do some old singles that I liked.
It was really a treat to hear that, because it wasn't the kind of thing that you'd expect from Peter Gabriel, but it was brought off pretty well.
I thought it would help to, just make the change for me. And both that and All Day and All of the Night were songs that, as 45s, I'd been very keen on when they were released.
Something of note on the session lineup during the Roxy dates, and I would imagine that probably includes the entire tour. The differences in styles between Robert Fripp, who I guess you referred to as Dusty Rhodes, and Steve Hunter, two very incongruous personalities. Fripp was very obscure in the background playing acoustic, and Steve was up electric and full of life. How did that sort of arrangement come about? I would think that Fripp would probably demand more of a role in a situation like that.
Well, no, really. I mean, he feels, I mean, that's part of the reason he doesn't want to use his own name, because always Fripp has been associated with projects which he's originated and stylized, like Crimson. And,
did he dictate the fact that he'd have another name, or what?
He wanted another name, yeah.
Huh.
And he felt here, where he was acting as a sideman, that you would rather go under another name than use his name, which is associated with a very distinct type of music. But I mean, effectively, the way it worked out was Steve was the upfront man, and Robert was the coloring agent. So
it worked out nicely.
It worked very well.
It did.
To my own taste. Everyone in the band, I think, was just doing what they felt was right for the songs, rather than
personalities.
Putting their own personalities, trying to stamp their own egos onto the tunes. And there's some really incredible musicians. And
yes, there were.
I mean, the fact that both Steve and Robert were on the same stage was very exciting for me.
It was exciting for everybody, I think. Several of your recent pieces on the solo, and some of the latter things with Genesis, make a direct reference to some sort of forthcoming apocalypse. And when Fripp dissolved King Crimson, he made some statements that were similar, that there was some sort of forthcoming catastrophe. Would the fact that you two got together at the ends of various careers indicate that you had similar beliefs in that area, or was it just coincidental?
Something like the do me double.
Yes.
Well, it was more coincidence, I think. I mean, for me, it's not so much a specific thing. I mean, I'm not. Robert's feelings at the time, I think, of breaking up Crimson were of a very finite event which would take place in the 1990s, I think he thought. And he wanted to prepare himself, amongst other things. For me, that's less specific, but I still expect some, not necessarily full Technicolor Cecil B. DeMille production.
Yes.
But maybe something which does change us as people, maybe opens us up and opens up areas which I believe in, such as ESP areas that I think all of us have certain abilities which we don't use, and perhaps a natural disaster will force these things to
come to the fore. Yes. Last time I talked with you, you were talking about doing some film. You had been negotiating with, I think it was William Friedkin, to do some soundtrack or something.
Oh, well, it was some writing, in fact, script writing as opposed to music, and that never came together, I think.
Well, how is your film career coming about? Or
it was totally non-existent. But at the time, it was something that, and he approached me totally out of the blue, And I thought, that sounds interesting, and checked it out. But at that time, I wasn't sure about leaving Genesis, and he wasn't totally committed to one project or another, and never came together. But
are you still looking toward those areas, or?
At some point, but I'm in no hurry, and the sort of writing, the backroom areas of filmmaking interest me a lot. I think probably more than the acting side, although I might try and get an acting situation at some point in order to learn about the backrooms.
In retrospect, do you have any misgivings about leaving Genesis at all?
No, actually, I mean, they're happier without me, and I'm happier without them, and we still get on well personally, so I think everyone has benefited.
I noticed on the opening show Friday, the first show, the promo show, that Stephen was in the audience. Did you know he was there Friday?
Oh, yes, I saw him afterwards.
And you walked out into the audience when, with the portable microphone doing Waiting for the Big One.
Yes.
And you walked right past him. I don't know if you saw him and wanted to ignore him, or you just didn't see him, because I was amazed that it was such a close contact without anybody, making notice of it.
No, in fact, I wasn't aware where he was. What happens is when the spot is on you, as I was walking around the audience on the tables and things, I can see behind me or to the sides, but in front I can't see anything. It's just the light of the spot. So I'm never too clear who I'm shaking hands with until after I've them. It's quite funny, because sometimes I would end up in some of the free areas. There's one or two tables at the top which were sorry, some buzz takes place. And I think some of the people who were acting very cool were a little surprised there.
Yes.
Heavy pair of feet in their glass.
You did one Genesis tune for the encore,
right,
on Friday.
Well, I was doing it all the time. I mean, basically what I figured was that people were good enough to me to give me encouragement at the end of a set of basically new material, that I should, in return, give them an old Genesis number that a lot of people wanted to hear.
How did you select that particular one, of all the things you could have done?
I wasn't sure. I thought probably it should be Up, and I quite like the rail character.
Yes.
So it was fun to do that one. The band at first, when I played it to them, they didn't like the sound of it at all. It sounded very complex, but once they got the hang of it, they played it really well.
I think that's what a lot of people found somewhat confusing, was the session backup, aside from Fripp, seems so rock and roll for Peter. In other words, you would think that it would be much more of an esoteric lineup than those people that performed. But I think that what you wanted to transmit to people was effective with the people that you did have.
Yeah, I think so. It was great fun for me to do. It was a little different, perhaps, from things I'd done in Genesis, and the musicians were able to fall into different styles that I think really gave a lot to the record.
What do you have planned in the near future?
Well, I go back to England day after tomorrow, do some concerts there, and then I'm not sure, I may nip back here for a few days, and then I hope get some recording done, or at least some writing first.
And for a new album?
Yeah, which I'm trying to decide now when it should be out, but it'll either I have to hurry up and try and get something in before the Christmas rush, or else wait and release at the same sort of time as I did the last one.
Well, the next time you're in town, we definitely have to get together for a live interview here on the station. Or it's so difficult. I know your schedule is hectic, but I do appreciate the fact that we were allowed a phone interview today, and I'm sure that everybody that listens will be excited. Thank you again, Peter. I hope that the shows in England are as successful as they were here.
So do I.
And thank you for treating us to a couple of excellent nights of entertainment at the Roxy, and I think I can say that probably on behalf of everybody who was out there.
Oh, well, that's very nice.
Thank you, Peter. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
I see faces and traces of home.
Back in New York City from the Lamb album. This is KNAC in Long Beach and the Import program. Hope you enjoyed the Gabriel interview. I thought that he was pretty candid there about a lot of things. I was kind of surprised to hear him say that he thought that Phil was a better vocalist. That probably is true, but you would think that somebody wouldn't really come out and, say that. This program does not want to foster a belief, however, in... what am I stepping on? Ooh, extraneous chords out here. This program does not want to foster a belief, however, that Gabriel was not a fine vocalist with Genesis. He was indeed. A few things here, and we'll be back with some new tunes tonight.